Hi, I'm Peterson Toscano.
And I'm Ben Yosua-Davis. Welcome to the fourth and final installment of our special storytelling bonus series here on climate change.
We've heard stories from reluctant nature lovers. We've heard about intergenerational wisdom and the twists that change our perspective. Today, we conclude the series with a voice that brings a vital, often overlooked perspective to the climate conversation, the link between our physical bodies and the health of the planet.
Our guest today is Tawni White. Tawni is a registered nurse who sees her medical work not just as a profession, but as a ministry. After witnessing the decline of health in marginalized communities, she began to see that we cannot truly have wellness in our bodies if we don't have wellness in our environment.
She is now a leader in congregational health, helping people of faith understand that caring for creation is a fundamental way to love our neighbors as ourselves. And before we listen to Tawny, I just want to, I didn't even tell you, Ben, but I've got some other guests that will join us later in the program.
Oh,
Autumn and Nicole, they're going to tell us about season 4, and you're going to hear some clips. So that's coming up. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. But first, let's listen to Tawny White.
When I think back about moments from my childhood, one of the clearest memories that I have is the feeling of hunger. There are plenty of nights where mom and my sisters and I had to stretch a meal. And sometimes the excitement of a crisp winter morning was about nothing more than knowing that I was going to get a hot meal when I went to school. Hunger either accompanied me to sleep or it woke me with fierce anger in the morning. That kind of hunger teaches you things. It teaches you about resilience, it teaches you about sacrifice, but it also taught me to be quiet. And as a child, I didn't have words like food sovereignty or food desert. I just knew that we didn't have much and neither did the people around us. That kind of hunger left a scar with me. It evoked a deep question about why something as sacred and basic as food could be out of reach for someone as simple as a child. So the nearest grocery store was miles away, and most of the food that made it into my neighborhood was either in a box, in a can, or it was distributed by the government for free. It could have been powdered milk, it could have been cheese, or it could have been something like rice that we would have to stand in line for hours for. Fresh fruits and vegetables were rare, and if it did make it to our side of town, they were probably already spoiled. But I do remember my mother's quiet strength and how she made something out of almost nothing, and how she skipped her own plate to make sure that we had enough. There was any number of times, at least once a month, but we'd walk to another challenged area of town. We would walk down historic streets, rain or shine, over a bridge and through traffic. And before we could even get to the building, we could see that the line was out the door and wrapped around the building. Now, this is like in the late 70s, early 80s, so there were such vibrant patterns in the clothes that people wore. There was adorned hairstyles that were just so very majestic to see coming across the bridge. But there was just something about the look of the people and the reality of the building that did not mix. My neurodivergent mind needs everything to make sense. And so the people just didn't match the building. And so I always wonder, why were there so many people in line? If the Bible says that everything on earth is in abundance, then why were there so many people in line? Why do some people get to eat and others of us don't get to eat at all? And so I didn't question anything because my hunger taught me to be quiet. But it did make me think about fairness. It made me think about the dignity of the people. And it made me wonder again, how come some people get to feast while others don't? Much later in my adult life, when I decided to embark on my personal health journey, I decided to research plant based dieting. And when I transitioned to such, I decided to try gardening. So there was in my backyard, I had a pack of seeds, I had a bag of organic soil, I had everything. I had the cutest little garden boots with the matching gloves. And at that particular time, I was a graduate of the University of YouTube. So I knew everything there was to know about gardening, so I thought. So I put my seeds in the ground and I watered them, and I did everything that I thought that I was supposed to do at that time. But day after day, week after week, I would go look and there nothing was happening. Coming home from work, checking my garden, and nothing was there. But a friend of mine told me that if you sing to your plants, that they will start to grow. So one day after work, I was in my garden and I just bust into the theme song from Flashdance. I have no idea, but it was the first song that came to mind, and I gave it my all. I was in a full Madison Square Garden concert in the backyard. I did that for a couple days, and then it was just one day I was in the backyard, and there was this little sprout that was coming up out of the ground. I didn't mention this earlier, but even as a child, I was a nature girl with everything that we were going through. I was a nature girl. I would go outside, I would climb up in a tree, I would look up at the sky, I would watch the clouds racing to nowhere. I'd listen to the birds, I would listen to the wind in the trees. And so everything that I did outside was upward focus. But that day when I got home from work, I noticed that little growth in the ground, and then something clicked in me, something shifted. I realized that the abundance that God had promised was beneath my feet, that everything that He had planned for me and my family and the promises that He had made was in the soil. So my every encounter was upward focused, but I realized that the God that I was praying to, that was just beyond the sky, was making His promises to me through the soil. That was the moment of my ecological conversion and the awakening that caring for the earth and receiving its gifts was the answer. So, as I continued to grow my garden, I realized that the joy that I felt was too powerful to keep to myself. So, I started teaching others, neighbors, children, church members, anyone that would listen about the power of planting their own seeds. I'll never forget my son coming into the house with a handful of jalapeno peppers, asking if we could make jalapeno poppers. And of course, we could. He was smiling from ear to ear, and he was holding his peppers as if he was holding a handful of gold. And in a way, it was. It was nourishment, yes, but at the same time, it was empowerment. We all utilize social media for one reason or another. We get 12 likes on a post, and now all of a sudden we're social media phenoms, right? It's a great time. I started posting simple things about how I was eating from the earth. And slowly I started getting DMs about what is that, or how did you do that, or did you do that yourself? And one woman in particular said she wanted to start gardening, but she expressed concerns about being outside, being in her backyard, being in the sun, being in the heat, and being in the dirt. She mirrored me in a lot of ways because, as much as I love, and I still love everything about being outside, I hated getting dirty or having the appearance of having dirt on me. I could hear those parental echoes of yelling out the window to get out of the dirt. And those kind of things were embedded in me being from certain neighborhoods and starting a life out in certain situations, being dirty was never allowed. We were not to ever have dirt on our skin or on our clothes. So I understood this about this woman, that it was a much deeper generational concern that I knew could start healing if we started small. So I introduced her to countertop gardening and garden kits. We talked about what her goals were, what she liked, what she ultimately had time, space, and commitment for. And of course, I sent her a link to the cutest little garden gloves with matching boots. So she did produce her herbs. She produced carrots and potatoes in containers on her patio. And this spring, I'm just super excited because now she is going to start gardening in her backyard. She took what we both believed to be dirt and she reclaimed it. She reframed it and she reclaimed it so that it's no longer dirt, that is now soil of the earth. And that is when I began to understand that the meaning of food sovereignty is not just about having food, but it's about having control over where it comes from and how it's grown and who will benefit from it. It's about reclaiming your dignity through that initial command. For too long, communities like mine have been denied that power. We've been taught to depend, not to create. So today I stress to families, churches, and schools the importance of growing food and reconnecting with the earth. Communities are building gardens that teach children about nutrition, and more people are advocating for food justice and environmental policies that protect the most vulnerable of us, our children. I think about that little girl who used to go to bed hungry, and I think how she used to pray quietly. And now I smile knowing those same hands that once reached out for food now plant seeds that feed others. So my story isn't just one about the scarcity, but that can be transformed into abundance, but it is one about the seeds that when we plant in the soul and in the soil is a step toward justice, hope, and renewal.
Every time we hear a story like Tawni's, it reminds me why we dedicated these bonus episodes to storytelling. Data tells us what is happening, but stories tell us who we are while it's happening.
Yeah. A good story can act like a mirror. It allows us to see our anxieties, our own callings, our connections to the earth reflected back at us. Tawny's story specifically shifts the narrative from saving the planet as this abstract concept to healing our communities as a physical, urgent reality.
And that's the power of these stories. They take the huge and overwhelming and make it human and intimate. When we share these moments, we aren't just passing time, we are building the social and spiritual muscle we need to face the future.
Yeah. And speaking of the future, we have reached a major milestone for this podcast.
That's right. As we wrap up this bonus series, we are officially handing the mic over to the new hosts of Season 4.
Please welcome Nicole Diroff and Autumn Brown.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Autumn.
It's so great to be with you. Okay, everyone, all you listeners, I'm Autumn Brown, and I'm so honored to join you for a new season of Climate Changed.
Woohoo!
You're going to get to know me over time, but here's where I'll start. I'm an artist, a theologian, a mother, and a freedom worker. And for the last 20 years, which is a long ass time, I've been helping movements and communities imagine and practice liberation, how we live into it, how we heal through it, and how we build it together.
So good. And I'm Reverend Nicole Diroff. I serve as Associate Director at the BTS Center and am thrilled to introduce our listeners to Autumn. Autumn, I am so excited for this journey together.
Me too.
You bring so much wisdom, so much lived experience, from organizing and facilitation to music and theology. We are going to have some fun together.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Nicole. It is truly an honor to be with you and to be with our listeners. My path has been deeply shaped by community in many different forms, and by the belief that healing and justice are not separate things, and both of them require us to be in deep communion with one another. A little bit more background on me. I spent 8 years working as a facilitator and political educator with the Anti-Oppression Resource and Training Alliance, also known as AORTA, specializing in that environment, really working with movements for social justice and for a solidarity economy. Before I was at AORTA, I worked at and led a nonprofit called Reclaim, which still exists. It's here in Minnesota where I live. Reclaim helps queer and trans youth to reclaim their freedom and liberation and all its forms through accessing mental health care and accessing healing supports and community. And just within and beyond that, I've really spent now 2 decades teaching and supporting organizers, faith leaders, and artists who are trying to create a more just and accessible and compassionate world.
Such good work. It inspires me and stretches me, the way in which your work takes on so many creative expressions, music and writing and podcasting and spiritual work in the midst of all of that. You've released albums with your band Autumn, and you co-host a podcast that I'm a fan of, How to Survive the End of the World, with your incredible sister, Adrienne Marie Brown. You've taught, you've spoken all over the country about theology, imagination, and collective transformation.
And all of that work has led me into this moment, into being here with you, to this season of Climate Changed. Because when we talk about climate change, we're not just talking about science or politics. We're talking about our hearts, our faith, our belief systems, our relationships. What does it actually mean to be alive right now in this time where so many things are ending? We're really talking with depth and with soulfulness about how to live and to love and to practice leadership in many different forms inside of a climate changed world, which this is exactly the conversation that I want to be in right now.
Totally.
This season on Climate Changed, we're asking what it means to live, to love, and to lead in a climate changed world.
You'll hear from spiritual leaders, artists, and healers who are helping us imagine what faithful leadership looks like right now.
Leaders like Katie Mears, who works on the front lines of disaster response.
How can we have more choices on the menu so that the collective solution can still be individually chosen? So if we can have more housing available and a way to communicate risk that does not require having a master's degree in environmental science.
Tori Stevens, who believes imagination is our most powerful climate tool.
Speculative fiction allows people to dream and imagine and create. We in the climate space need more of that. And then the other piece of this is that there's folks who are not moved by the news. They are more invested in fiction. They get their orientation from fiction. The emotional part of fiction, it just works for some people.
Norma Wong, a Zen master and native Hawaiian leader who invites us to breathe together through collapse.
We have to actually realign in terms of how we are going to reconstitute the human beingness, within the democracy experiment. How that might occur during times of relative stability don't matter. How does that operate in a time of maximum crisis where everything is being attacked from inside and outside? What is it that we stand for, and how do we reconstitute ourselves to be in that? If we abandon each other for an ideal, then we would have totally lost our way.
Rabbi Ora Nitkin-Kaner, who helps us find holiness in uncertainty.
When you're losing your ground, when you're losing your sense of hope, what becomes your ground? What are the values that you want to be living out in your life? It's a dirty process, like in the best way. None of us have answers in this time. We're all just figuring it out together.
And Francis Weller, who reminds us that grief and love are two sides of the same bridge.
What we want from ritual is the possibility of derangement. We want to be knocked out of the current arrangement. The arrangement that most of us have been given is be in control, behave, look good, like you got it together. Don't fall apart. Ritual is the invitation to fall apart and realigned. You don't want to come out of ritual the same as you went in.
Together, these conversations inspire courage, connection, and community.
Join us for Climate Changed, a podcast from the BTS Center.
Listen wherever you get your podcasts or at climatechangedpodcast.org.
We are so excited to see where Nicole and Autumn take us. And to celebrate this new chapter, we want to invite all of you to join us for a massive launch event on Monday, March 16th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Now, this isn't going to be a boring webinar. It's a deep dive conversation about the current pressure points in American society, politics, and justice, and how they intersect with our climate reality. Autumn lives in Minneapolis, which has been the center of a lot of tension and conversation and action. You will hear from guests, hosts, and listeners, and we'll have several of our Season 4 guests there for a live conversation.
Plus, if you join us, you'll see exclusive video samples from the upcoming season, behind-the-scenes footage that won't be released anywhere else, and we'll be doing some giveaways throughout the event.
I'm working on a bloopers roll as well. Like a good bloopers roll. There's a lot of laughter. Autumn is a great laugher. I think I want to put a reel together of just her laughing. She's just great. All of this launch event happens on March 16th, 2026. This is the day before the first episode of Season 4 drops on March 17th. You'll see it in your feed, wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, at the website. You will find details about this, and you can register to join us for free at the btscenter.org.
This brings our storytelling series to a close, and we want to thank Kate, Andre, Blair Nelson, Tyler Mark Nelson, David Arfa, June Zellers, Sarah Heyman, and Tawni White for trusting us with their stories.
And thank you for listening. If these stories have moved you, please share them. Use your social media, your church bulletin, however, be creative. Use them to start conversations in your own circle of friends.
And don't forget to visit thebtscenter.org to sign up for the March 16th launch event. You can also share your reflections with us by email, podcast@thebtscenter.org, or leave a voicemail at 207-200-6986.
Climate Changed Podcast is a project of the BTS Center in Portland, Maine. I get to produce it.
I'm Ben Yosua-Davis.
And I'm Peterson Toscano. We'll see you on March 16th, perhaps.
Thanks for listening.
In the next episode of Climate Changed, I speak with Tori Stevens about the power of speculative storytelling and what our imagined futures demand of us.
Speculative fiction opens up a lot of opportunity for us to dream about the futures that we want, as opposed to the things that we don't want. What I started to notice after managing this project is that, in kind of being at Grist and reading the news every day around what's going on in the world, is that there's a lot of like what we don't want like institutions to do or what we don't want in life, but there's less of what we want to choose. What's the world that we want if we had power and control and like, through democratic means, but like if the people I have to put that in there.
Democratically, we have control.
I have to put that in there because of where we are right now.
Truly.
Speculative fiction allows people to dream and imagine and create. We in the climate space need more of that.